Hello, and welcome to our video for the NeurIPS paper, A Consciousness-Inspired Planning Agent for Model-Based Reinforcement Learning. This work is a collaboration of Mingde Zhao, Zhen Liu, Sitao Luan, Shuyuan Zhang, Doina Precup, and Yoshua Bengio. Please scan the QR code with your phone to get the latest archive version of the paper, as well as the source code repository. This QR code would be shown in every following slide of the presentation. We begin the presentation by introducing the notion of consciousness. We refer to the categorization offered in the science paper, What is Consciousness and Could Machines Have It?, which states that the behavioral pattern emerged from consciousness can be captured with two axes. The first axis, C1, is the awareness of the environment. It is an selective attention towards the environment elements. In this paper, we seek to design a C1-capable planning agent. The second axis is the C2, which is the self-awareness. C2-capable planning is left for our future works. It's not included in this paper. Many people discuss where consciousness actually comes from. Is it an evolved prior, or is it a learned behavior, or is it both? Well, the answer could be very controversial. Personally, I think that the biological structures that enable consciousness are likely from evolution, but the conscious behaviors are likely a result of learning after birth. After having discussed the intuition about what consciousness may be, we discuss why a consciousness-inspired planning agent would be significant to reinforcement learning research. In planning scenario, being C1 conscious actually means the agent is able to take consideration only into the parts that are relevant to its planning step or planning trajectory. Among all the possible advantages that this method could bring, we highlight the out-of-distribution generalization capacity. Intuitively, this can be understood by the following example. Humans, as we are, can predict the free fall of an apple no matter we are under the stars of Sahara or on the beach of Vancouver. This is because that the free fall of an apple, which is governed by physics, is consistent wherever we go. And since we are going to predict the free fall of an apple, which is the task that we are seeking to resolve, the other parts of the environment do not actually matter. This is because we are conscious and we are able to focus our attention on the parts that we want to predict. We summarize in advance the four main contributions of this paper. To highlight, the most important one is that this paper shows the proof of concept that C1 could help model-based reinforcement learning significantly in out-of-distribution generalization scenarios. So how do we actually enable C1 capable planning? We show a bird's eye view of the design agent architecture here. The agent actually first converts the observation with the encoder into a set-based state representation. Then on top of the state set, which is a bundle of different objects, we make a transition model that simulates how the set would evolve into the future given the action we actually pick. During the transition, we also predict the reward and the termination signals. To be C1 capable, on top of this normal set-based model, we introduce a select and integrate procedure. First, based on ST and AT, we select the potential objects that may be useful during this transition. In this way, we get the bottleneck set CT. And then we only train the dynamics model to simulate how CT would change into CT plus 1. And then with this very small transition evolution, we predict the signals of reward and termination out of this. At the very last, with the integration operation, we somehow paste back CT plus 1 to ST such that we get ST plus 1. This means that even though we introduced lots of sub-procedures inside the model can actually be still trained in the same procedure as if we have this model. And the model is used for decision time planning under the framework of model predictive control. Please check the paper for more details regarding our design and the main contribution of this paper. After discussing the seemingly complicated architecture, we discuss how to train our design agent. So the end-to-end training of this set-based, model-based reinforcement learning agent is by backpropagating a simple sum of 4 different predictive signals. One is the value estimation. The second is the state estimation. Third is the reward estimation. And the fourth is the termination estimation. Jointly shaping all these the states avoids the collapse to trivial solutions and make the representation useful for all signal predictions of the interest. Here we introduce our experimental setting. The environments are crafted with Jim Minigrid and Baby AI. They are essentially grid worlds. An observation in these grid worlds is an array of vectors which are placed according to the cells of the grid world. Each vector is a description of the cell of the grid world, whether or not it's empty, which kind of object it may contain, which color it is, and which direction the object is facing. An encoder is learned on top of these observations to convert each cell vector one by one into an object embedding. Please check the details of the encoder in the manuscript. In the experiments, we employ the non-static training procedure, which means that the agent actually is trained in different layout in each different episode. The layout generation of the training procedure is controlled by a difficulty parameter. In this case, in figure 5a, the difficulty parameter is 0.35. By varying the difficulty parameter, we can actually control the density of the lava grid, which are essentially obstacles for the agent to navigate. And we evaluate the agent on out-of-distribution generalization settings, which means that the agent has never seen a layout like this during the training, and the agent has to figure out how to navigate in these new environments based on its knowledge about the dynamics of the world. Now we show the out-of-distribution generalization results for the navigation tasks with turn or forward dynamics. By turn or forward dynamics, we mean that the agent needs to pick an action between turning based on its current facing direction or taking a step forward based on the current facing direction. Before we look into these curves about the results, first, we look at the description of the legend. So for CPN agent is a conscious planning agent C1 capable with bottleneck size n, which means that the agent would maximally take into consideration n objects from the environment. The second is the UP agent, which is the agent very, very similar to CP agent, however, without a bottleneck mechanism in the model. The third one is the model-free baseline agent with a set-based state encoder. Note that the first 3 agents, they share the same state encoder architecture, and they also share the same value estimator architecture. The difference is that the model-free agent does not have a model part. There is also a WM baseline, which stands for unsupervised world model. It spans 1 million steps for exploration in an unsupervised manner first, and then it starts to learn. Therefore, in the curves, you will see there is a bit of delay going on. Then there is the Doina agent. There is the Doina agents, and then there is the no set agent, which actually uses no set-based representation, but a vectorized state encoder. This is what most papers used in the current literature. As we can see, the CP8 agent actually achieves constantly and consistently the best result over the learning progress. For all the sets of experiments, when compared against the multiple baselines with architectures as similar as possible, the number of seed runs for each curve and the corresponding error bar is 20. Here is the visualization of attention during planning. The grids and the objects that the agent attends to are actually marked with inverted colors. In these three figures, you can actually see the agent is able to take consideration into the parts that are really relevant to its current moving trajectory. But we have to say that these figures have no statistical purposes, but only for intuitive visualization. We're using semi-hard attention, therefore, no other cells are attended to. Now we turn to another set of experiment, which is the navigation with turn and forward dynamics. For turn and forward dynamics, the agent chooses to turn to one of the four directions based on the current facing direction, and then goes forward. It actually carries out a composite action of turn and forward. So as you can see in this experiment, we see consistent pattern as that of the turn or forward dynamics set of experiment. And now we show another set of results, including the navigation with turn on forward dynamics, also with color cluttering. So in this set of experiments, the color of the objects are constantly changing across the episode. Therefore, the agent has to be able to learn to ignore these distractions while being able to finish the task. So here we introduce an additional variant of the CP agent that we introduced in the paper, which is the CP8+. It's a CP agent with a size 8 bottleneck, but with noise injected in the model training. As we can see, if you inject a bit of noise in the model training, it's actually more resistant to the color cluttering. This is how we may want to counter the noises in the environment in the future work. Finally, we introduce the last set of results, which are the navigate and unlock tasks with turn and forward dynamics. In these tasks, the agent needs to find a key on the map first, or it would not be able to unlock the goal. The task is built upon the simple navigation tasks, which means the agent still cries before the lava field. In this essentially two-stage tasks, the CP agent is actually able to demonstrate far superior performance than the other baselines. We have conducted various ablation studies to investigate the performance of the design agents. Please go to the appendix of the paper to check them out. Finally, here are some potential questions that you may want to ask after reading the paper thoroughly, as well as our drafted answers to them. Thank you all very much for listening.